Here we go. And
All right.
hang on, I have to pause. I have to mute myself on the Facebook. Here we go. And now we are ready to go. Streaming live. Okay, here we go. Welcome. Have you ever wondered what your art would look like if joy, not pressure, deadlines, or perfection, was at the center of your practice? In this episode of The Thriving Creative, we're diving into the pleasure principle, how to make joy your creative superpower. We'll explore ways to reignite that spark, shake off the weight of expectations, and let curiosity lead the way. Because when you create from a place of joy, your work doesn't just feel good, it feels alive. So let's dive in. Welcome back to The Thriving Creative. I'm your host, Gabrielle Senza, and today we're exploring something so simple yet so transformative: joy. For many of us, creating started as an act of pure play, playing with colors, words, or movement just because it felt good. But somewhere along the way, joy got crowded out by pressure: pressure to perform, to sell, to prove that what we're making is worth something. But what if I told you that joy isn't just a nice to have aspect of living a good life, but it's essential? What if I told you it were essential to creating really great work that sparks you, that has you so alive and feeling like you're in the flow? I recently came across a quote by the artist Yayoi Kusama. She once said, "With just one polka dot, nothing can be achieved. But when we put them together, the whole becomes visible." I love that quote mainly because it has something to do with visibility and invisibility. And if you knew me, if you already know me, you know that I am obsessed with invisibility and visibility. And I've created lots of work about that. And I'll probably even mention more about it in this session, but who knows? We'll see. I think joy works the same way as polka dots, right? Small, joyful moments in your creative process can add up to something extraordinary, a body of work that reflects your truest self. So, why is joy so important for us as creatives? For starters, when you create with joy, your work feels authentic. Think about someone like Olafur Eliasson, for example, the artist behind immersive installations like The Weather Project. His work is playful yet profound, inviting people to experience wonder. You can feel the joy and curiosity that goes into every piece. Joy doesn't make the just Joy doesn't just make the process more fun, it helps you tap into flow. You know that feeling when time just disappears and you're completely absorbed in what you're doing? That's joy in action. That's also known as flow. I've talked about that in other episodes, and so you can go check them out. I think one of my very first episodes of The Thriving Creative was something having to do with the word flow in there. So go check that out. I go more into depth than that one. Here's the thing: joy often gets pushed aside because we think we need to grind to succeed. We believe that if it feels good, it can't be serious. But that's a lie. Took me a while to learn this, but that is totally a lie. Joy and ambition aren't opposites, they're partners. And when you let joy fuel your work, the results are magnetic. If you're feeling disconnected from joy, don't worry, it's not lost. You just need to dig a little. Here are 3 ways to rediscover joy in your creative process. 1, bring back play. Look at how choreographer Akram Khan uses improvisation to explore movement. His process is playful yet deeply intentional, and that freedom shows in his performances. What's one way you can bring playfulness back into your process? Maybe it's experimenting with a material you've never tried, or making something with no goal in mind. Number 2, focus on what feels good. Think about the parts of your process that light you up. Is it the brainstorming stage? Is it the messy experimentation? Is it the preparing the paints and the materials that you're going to use? Just lean into that and allow yourself to to really be in that and explore it and get a sense of what is it about it? What are the feelings that come up when you are in that part of your process? And then maybe you'll get some ideas about how to expand on that. Okay, number three, create without judgment. This is challenging. I know, definitely has been for me. Uh, Here in my notes, I put in that when artist Bisa Butler started creating quilts, she let go of the idea that her work had to fit traditional standards. Now her vibrant fabric-based portraits are celebrated for their originality. If she had just been doing them in paint, how would that really differentiate her from lots of other artists who are doing portraits in paint? How amazing to be able to find a way to express it in another material that feels really good for her specifically to work with. So ask yourself, what would I make if I didn't care how it turned out? I love this question right now because I am just starting a new residency, a 3-month residency here in this space. Uh, and it's the artist residency at Nob Hill in Great Barrington. It's a new private opportunity that I was blessed to be given. And the rules I've been wanting to make work having to do with my trip to Antarctica in 2022 ever since we got back. And I haven't done a lot of paintings, actually no paintings yet of the icebergs and the colors or lack of colors, the subdued colors that I've envisioned for years now. And so what I got excited about with this residency is that it's a brand new space. It's not filled with all my other projects, so I can really dedicate this space to working on the Antarctica paintings and drawings that I want to do. And I can continue working on the photography and the video work and my invisibility lab stuff over at my other studio, which is also here in town. But this really gives me like a private, very secluded, yeah, totally dedicated space to make paintings and drawings. So that's really exciting. And my rule is no rules. Just have fun, just experiment, just like make a mess, make lots of crappy versions of what it is I'm trying to, what I see in my head, because I'm rusty. I haven't been painting in a while. So I can't imagine that the paintings are going to come out just as I envision them right off the bat, right? So give myself some grace and some space to play. And I think it will be a very different experience than what I often encounter in my own studio when I'm like going to work and I have some of those pressures that I mentioned in the first segment of today's show, which is like the pressures to make work that's sellable, make work that's really, a gallery is going to want. I'm not going to have those be the parameters or the pressures on the work. I'm just going to create what comes out, play around with materials and scale and all this different uh, styles that I want to play with to see what I feel comfortable with and what I feel inspired to and moved by. And then in terms of like creating in that manner where you take all those pressures away and you give yourself that private space to work, it allows you to create what I've often found to be like seminal pieces for a new direction. Um, and even the things that are, not something you'd necessarily put into an exhibition because it doesn't fit or it's not cohesive with the other works in an exhibition, for example, it doesn't mean you can't sell it. And it doesn't mean there's not going to be an audience member for it. 9 times out of 10, I've found that people fall in love with the pieces that I, didn't include in an exhibition. Like they're more like sketches or they didn't quite make the cut when I was making the exhibition. And an exhibition is a work of art in its own right, right? Because you want it to be in a space and have a certain uh, feeling, whatever the feeling is you're going for, and that it's cohesive, it's strong, and it's conveying the message and making the impact that you really want it to make. And sometimes with what we might call our weaker pieces, they won't hold up in that exhibition situation, in that work of art, but they totally still stand as a work of art with value. So don't throw them away. You don't have to ditch everything that's not going into a show. Uh, just know that you are likely to find if you love it, someone else is going to love it too, right? Okay, so going on to the next segment, I'm going back to my notes here, keep going off script. Uh, okay, joy doesn't have to stop in the studio. It can be a cornerstone of your creative business, actually. Here's how. Align your work with your values. Take a page from the work of artist Amanda Fingbodipakia, whose public art projects blend science, activism, and joy. She creates work that aligns with her passions and values, which makes it meaningful for her and her audience. Okay, number two, infuse joy into how you share your work. This is really fun. Think about ways to make your marketing or client interactions feel like an extension of your creativity. For example, instead of writing a standard artist statement, what if you told your story in a way that felt fun and authentic? You could do it through a song or a poem or some kind of radical, bold statement. Um, there are a lot of different ways. And also think about the experience you want to create for your audience, which I'm throwing in here, but it does fall into that category of like how you share your work. What is the environment you're sharing it in? How are you marketing it and talking about it and presenting it? Because we're creatives, we get to design all those aspects of it, and it's really good to think about, the before, during, and after experience for your audience. You know, what do they receive in advance of the exhibition? What do they receive when they show up? What do they remember or go away from the exhibit with, whether or not they buy a work of art? What is the idea, the thoughts, the feelings, the sentiments that you really want them to have when they leave your exhibition or studio visit or performance or whatever it is you're creating? Okay, number three, this is really important. Redefine success. What does success look like for you? It doesn't have to be all about sales, selling out your show, or getting rave reviews and picked up in the media or massive recognition. Maybe success is actually creating work that lights you up and trusting that the right audience will find it, right? Like, doesn't that feel good when you when you meet someone that's looking at your work and they just really love it, they just, whether they can buy it or not, just when they get it and they talk about how it has impacted them, what it made them feel or realize or learn and think about. So these for me are big markers of success. It has never been about how many dollars show up in my bank account because of my work. Success for me is about the engagement and it's about connection. And that is, I think, the really number one most important thing for me when it comes to my work is how are we connecting around this idea? And what does that generate? I would love to see your comments in the comment section, either here in Facebook or over on YouTube, wherever you're watching this. Okay, number four, here we go, segment four. Well, here, I'm looking at my notes again, trying not to get too far off course. Okay. So, oh yeah, so this point, creating from joy isn't always easy, right? Like fear and doubt and comparison can block us from experiencing pleasure in our work. Here's how to move past those blocks. Okay, first, acknowledge your fear. Often fear is what stops us from trying something new. Name it and it loses power. So for example, I want to um, I want to play around with some large scale drawings that I want to do and probably try new materials like uh, well, there's so many things that I want to do in this residency. Some of it involves like some big thick impasto painting of these oceanscapes with the icebergs floating in them. And so when I think about that, then I start thinking about like, oh, that's going to use up a lot of paint, or that could make a mess. And this is a nice spiffy studio. What am I going to do? So I can just name it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm having some fear, some anxiety around, what could go wrong. And once I name it, it's like, oh, it definitely loses power. And also it becomes something I can come up with a solution for, like, well, how can I make sure that I feel comfortable making a mess? Knowing that I'm not going to destroy the place. What are some like really practical things I can do? And then boom, 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 I can think of like five things. So it's really good to name the thing that you're afraid of or that's troubling you, because like it says, by naming it, it loses its power. Number two, let go of perfectionism. Perfectionism kills joy, totally kills joy. What if you gave yourself permission to make something messy just for the sake of making it and allow yourself to make a mess? That's what I'm planning on doing. I have lots of extra paper around. I'm going to make a mess. I'm going to make lots of crappy drawings if that's what happens, and I'm okay with that. The whole point is to get comfortable and to stay in my joy of experimenting and exploring and trying new things. And number three, really important, stop comparing. Your creative path is yours alone, and focus on what brings you joy, not what others are doing. I am guilty of falling into this trap as well. So I start looking on Instagram and I look at what these people are doing and what those people are doing and what exhibitions they're having and how many followers they have, that kind of thing. It can get really daunting, and I can think like, wow, I haven't done anything, right, compared to them. But in fact, I have done quite a lot. And even if I hadn't, it doesn't matter, because what am I doing now? And is it bringing me joy? Does it have value? That's really all that matters. The value is the joy, the sense of peace or aliveness that it creates in me. And then if we're lucky, it also resonates with someone else, right? So that comes back to that, like, what's your definition of success? Does it make you happy? That would be my top definition of success. Okay, so where do I want to go with this? Joy isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's about prioritizing what lights you up and trusting that when you create from joy, your best work will follow. So take a moment to reflect. What brings you joy in your creative process? Think about that. What brings you joy in your creative process? And think about, how can you invite more of it into your work this week? What brings you joy in your creative process, and how can you invite more of it into your work this week? Write it down, speak it aloud, and then most importantly, follow it. Follow what your heart tells you. If you're ready to take this deeper, join me for the Creative Vision Mapping Workshop on January 31st, I believe. The link will be in the show notes and below this video. I had to reschedule it, so I'm having trouble recalling the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it is the 31st. In this workshop, we will create a roadmap for your artistic and financial goals, and one that feels joyful and aligned with what you're up to and what matters to you. As I said, details are in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Thriving Creative. If this episode brought you a spark of joy, please share it with a fellow creative and let's spread the inspiration. Remember, your creativity matters, your joy matters, and the world needs what you have to offer. Until next time, stay curious, stay playful, and keep creating with joy. We'll see you next week. Mwah!